Welcome to Hearts of Scripture, where ancient words come alive, where every story of the Bible touches the heart and awakens the soul. This is the story retold through the eyes of Dante Alighieri, the man who once walked through the depths of the soul and saw the light of heaven within the darkness of humanity. Today, I invite you to walk with me through that journey once more, not to hear another sermon, but to live again the pilgrimage of faith, of doubt, and of rebirth. I do not speak from memory, but as one who has walked, who has fallen, and who has been lifted up. Every word I speak is the ashes of doubt and the fire of grace. This is not only an ancient story, it is the story of every soul still wrestling between light and shadow, between the cry of the heart and the silence of God. Listen, not only with your ears, but with your soul. One night I stood upon a mountain peak where the wind moved through cold stones and the darkness lay thick like the cloak of death. Below was the city of men, its lights flickering like souls trying to imitate the stars. Unaware they were about to fade. In that silence, a whisper rose within me, as if from beyond the sky, closer than my own heartbeat. It asked, "Do you still tremble before the judgment of the one you call Father?" I bowed my head. For too long I had loved his mercy and forgotten his justice. That was when the door of vision opened. I saw a valley covered in radiant mist, where every soul carried a lamp in hand, walking toward the light on the horizon. But among them, some lamps began to fade, smoke rising and the glow trembling, like the last breath of life. A voice called out, deep and thunderous like winter storm, "Awake you who keep watch. The bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him." And among the multitude, I saw two groups. One held their lamps burning bright, their eyes alight with joy and holy fear. The other looked around in panic, searching for oil to rekindle their dying light. But none could share it. That oil could neither be borrowed nor bought. I understood it was not the oil of human hands, but the oil of faith, endurance, and obedience. It was kept in the vessel of the heart, carried only by those who remained steadfast through the long night. When the voice called again, I saw the bright door open, and the shining souls entered as stars returning to heaven. But those who remained stood in darkness, knocking in despair, pleading for it to open. From within the light came a voice, solemn and sorrowful. "I do not know you." At that moment, silence fell, not the silence of peace, but of eternal absence. I trembled, for in that light I saw myself. I too had once held a lamp without oil, believing faith was memory, not fire. But God does not count how many times we come to the temple. He looks at the flame we keep when no one is watching. I knelt, gazing at the souls left behind, and I understood that the warning was not for others, but for me, for every soul living between two worlds, half believing, half asleep. When I lifted my head, the mist had cleared. Only the gentle light of dawn remained. And through the wind I heard the whisper of the Holy One, "Keep watch, for you do not know the day or the hour." And in that light I walked on, carrying a flame, still faint, but true. For the first time I understood that light was never mine. It was His. Have you ever wondered why some people live their whole lives in faith, yet in the end are left standing outside the door of light? I saw it with my own eyes, in the second vision granted to me within the Valley of Souls. In that place, no wind moved, time did not flow, and each soul carried something heavy in their hands. The burden of their own life. They did not hold lamps, but small golden chests, inside which were the silver coins they had once been given. I heard a voice calling from above, majestic, yet gentle, servants, present what I entrusted to you. When that voice sounded, the ground trembled. The lids of the chests opened, and from them shone the brilliant light of faithful souls. Some brought 5 coins, others 2, and they came before the throne, bowing low to offer what they had multiplied. From the throne came words of praise like pure water. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with little. Enter into the joy of your Lord. But then, amid the echo of rejoicing, I saw one man trembling as he stepped forward, clutching his chest tightly to his heart, as if afraid to lose it. The light from the throne fell upon him, revealing a face covered in the shadow of fear. When his name was called, he opened the chest, and inside was only one old coin, dust covering it like the ashes of lost opportunity. I saw in his eyes no rebellion, only anxiety and self-defense. He said, "Master, I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, so I was afraid. I hid your treasure in the ground, and now I return it to you untouched." All space fell silent. Then a beam of light cut through like a sword, and the voice declared, "You wicked and lazy servant, did you not understand that what I gave you was not to be hidden, but to bear fruit?" That light turned into fire, burning the chest, and the coin melted into ash, rising into the air. I saw that man's soul drawn into the outer darkness, where light does not reach. In that moment, another voice rose within me, quiet but unmistakable. Have you ever done the same? The question pierced my heart like a blade. I thought of the times I withheld the grace given to me because I feared failure, loss, or exposure. I had buried the gifts of God beneath the safe soil of habit, of reason, of self-pity. I realized that unfaithfulness does not always wear the face of sin. Sometimes it wears the face of caution. How many of us have been entrusted with love, with truth, with the power to lead, yet bury it all beneath the earth of fear of judgment? While God calls us to bear fruit, we choose safety instead. I saw clearly that hell is not only for the rebellious, but also for the indifferent, for the soul that believes silence is neutral. But before God, silence in the face of calling is betrayal. I saw among the sea of light those whose souls burned brightly, not because they were perfect, but because they acted in faith even while trembling. They did not hide their gifts for fear of failure. They did not stay silent when they were meant to speak. They did not step back when they were called forward. And I heard the voice declare, "The joy of heaven is not for those who keep, but for those who give." Then I lifted my eyes and saw a radiant hand reaching toward me, holding not a golden chest, but a small lamp. The voice continued, "This is your portion, not to bury, but to light." The small flame flickered in my hand, fragile but alive. I felt warmth flow through my heart, and I understood what is given to the soul is never meant to be hidden. Every blessing carries within it a command. Let there be light. Whoever buries the light will be consumed by his own darkness. The flame in my hand still burned, and from that flame a new realm unfolded before me, a valley stretching like a sea of souls. There, every spirit stood divided into 2 lines, one shining as if woven from the mist of dawn, the other dim and grey like cooled ashes. Above them, the throne blazed like the sun at midnight, surrounded by angels holding swords of light, waiting in solemn silence for command. A voice rose from the heart of eternity, deep and absolute. Come, O nations, for the hour of judgment has come. I looked around and saw multitudes from every age, kings and beggars, scholars and the unknown, all standing together beneath that gaze. No one could speak, for before him titles held no weight, only the truth of the heart remained. Then he descended, not as a gentle father, but as a king who had been patient too long. His eyes pierced through every soul, not with anger, but with perfect clarity, so that none could hide. He said, I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me in. A group of people lifted their faces. Puz led, Lord, when did we see you? So he answered, when you did it for one of the least of these, you did it for me. And light covered them as reward for small deeds that heaven had never forgotten. But on the other side, he turned to the remaining souls and asked the same. I was hungry, and you did not feed me. I was thirsty, and you did not give me drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. They cried out, Lord, when did we see you and not serve you? And he replied, when you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it for me. I heard the sound of weeping spread like breaking waves. His voice was not loud, yet every word carved itself into the soul, leaving no place to hide. In that moment I understood what I had long resisted, that the final judgment is not measured by great sins, but by small indifferences. Indifference is the veil that keeps light from touching the heart. I saw a man standing in the dark line, once a priest, his eyes dry, his lips trembling. He looked around for proof, trying to defend himself, saying he had prayed, preached, obeyed the law, but behind him appeared the faces of the poor he had passed by, the children left at his door, the suffering ones he had promised to pray for. Each face was a silent witness, and I saw his tears fall, not from repentance, but from knowing it was too late. The fire of judgment rose not in violence, but as the quiet withdrawal of light. Across from him, I saw a young woman kneeling in the bright line. Her garments were torn, the marks of hardship still upon her shoulders, but her eyes were calm like a still lake. When her name was called, I heard the angel read. She fed the hungry, though she herself was not full. She clothed the naked with her only garment. She wept with the sorrowful and prayed for those who hurt her. And the voice declared, enter into the joy of your Father. I felt a wave of warmth pass through me, so pure that I thought I could dissolve within it. I understood then that in the eyes of the eternal, compassion is not an ornament of virtue, but the very essence of salvation. Heaven is not bought with creeds, but with mercy tested by suffering. The souls in the light were not proud. They stood silent, as if they had done nothing great. And it was that humility that made them radiant. I heard in the wind a voice beyond all language saying that kindness is the testimony of true faith. A faith that does not give birth to mercy is a body without a soul. When the vision of judgment ended, I stood alone between two fields, one bright, one dark. No one forced me to choose, but the light invited while the darkness pulled back. I remembered the faces I had seen, the eyes of the King, and I knew that this choice does not wait for the end of time. It happens in every day. We live. Every small act is a hidden judgment. Every moment of love or neglect is a verdict written upon ourselves. As I left the valley, I saw in the sky words written in light that could never be erased. Mercy is the language of heaven, and indifference is the voice of hell. I bowed my head, knowing that the justice of God needs no hammer or decree. It moves through the way humans treat one another. Then I saw a door open in the distance, not of gold or marble, but a narrow frame of light leading to a small path, and I heard the final whisper, go and do likewise. For judgment no longer waits in the future. It is already writing your name through the actions of today. I walked through that narrow gate and found myself standing upon a vast plain where there was no longer a boundary between earth and sky. The air was thick, like the breath of a world awaiting its sentence. At the center stood a great throne made of light and shadow interwoven, each beam holding within it the memory of countless souls. Upon the throne was not a human form, but a presence radiant and indescribable. I did not dare call him by name, for every title melted before such majesty. Around him, enormous books were open, their pages not of paper, but of breath, containing every word, every thought, every action ever spoken or hidden. I knew this was the house of judgment, where all truth stood uncovered, where language could no longer defend, only essence could bear witness. As I stepped closer, the ground reflected my own soul, not my body, but fragments of light and shadow swirling together. I saw the things I thought I'd forgotten, the small words, the careless glances, the moments I chose, silence. When I should have spoken, all appeared clear before me, and I understood that judgment does not come from without, but from the light within. Those who live in truth find that light to be their friend. Those who live in deceit find it to be their fire. When I lifted my eyes, a voice spoke, not loud, yet it silenced everything. Humanity has learned to speak of justice, but not to stand within it. They cry for fairness for themselves, but forget that justice begins in the heart. I do not ask how many sins they committed, but how many chances to love, to forgive, to be true. They have betrayed. I was struck still, for those words were not spoken to the crowd, but straight into me. From afar, I saw souls being called forth. One by one, they came before the light, each carrying their own shadow. Some bowed low, their shadows thick and heavy, like chains. Others walked lightly, their shadows transparent, merging with the light, as if there had never been separation. The light passed through them, and in an instant, what was true remained. What was false dissolved like ash in the wind. I saw some who had been revered on earth, praised for their holiness. Yet here their renown carried no weight, falling away like dry leaves. And I saw another unknown, whose name no one had remembered, yet the brightness of that soul made even the light around the throne bow slightly. The presence said, "Your name is not written in the books of men, but I have engraved it upon my heart." When those words sounded, I knew that the judgment of heaven is not based on appearances, but on faithfulness in silence. A tear fell from my soul, not of fear, but of repentance. For so many years I had seen judgment as a sword, never realizing that within it lived mercy. The light does not destroy, it refines like fire that burns away the false to rescue the true. I saw one soul cry out, "Forgive me, Lord. I have believed, but I have not lived true." The light enveloped him, and in a blaze of cleansing pain, he became transparent. When the light withdrew, he stood there, no longer bearing his old form, only the clear gaze of a child. The presence said, "You have endured truth, therefore you shall live." I saw that judgment is not only an ending, but a rebirth through fire. And trembling, I understood that the justice of God is not opposed to mercy. It is the deepest expression of it. When I bowed my head, the light around the throne began to fade, and I heard the final decree: those who love truly will not fear that day. For love is the truth that judgment cannot burn away. When the light was gone, I still stood upon the silent plain, feeling within me a flame that would not die, burning and bright, a mark of what I had witnessed. so that when I return to the world, I will not forget that judgment has already begun within me. Every time I choose to love or to refuse love, I stepped out from the plane of judgment, thinking that the light had already burned away every illusion within me. But as I went deeper into the silence, I saw yet another gate, greater and older, carved with letters that did not belong to any human language. Upon it was written, Ionios, which means eternal. I did not understand its full meaning until an unseen hand pressed me forward. The moment I crossed the threshold, the space around me seemed to explode into two poles. One of blinding light so bright it hurt, and one of darkness so deep it had no end. Everything I had once called time was torn apart, and I stood where every earthly moment was only the brief breath of eternity. I heard a sound like the clash of 1,000 waves, cries and songs interwoven, regret and praise entwined, the voices of two kingdoms forever divided. I saw a river cutting through reality, its waters reflecting not the sun, but the souls themselves. On the left, it carried the color of ash and smoke. On the right, it gleamed like crystal. I bent down to look, and in that river I saw myself twice, one reflection of light and one of shadow. I understood that this was the judgment of eternity, not imposed by another, but chosen by the soul through its brief life on earth. When I raised my eyes, two paths opened, one leading toward the sky that never fades, and one descending into the abyss where light was swallowed whole. I heard the voice of the one I did not dare to look upon, rising from beyond the river. Ionios is not only endless time, it is the substance of the soul. You choose it each day, in every thought, in every action, in every silence. Those who live in light draw eternity toward light. Those who live in darkness carry their darkness into forever. There is no neutrality, not middle ground. I looked around and saw countless souls walking, each following the direction their inner light revealed. Some moved lightly, like feathers in the wind, and wherever their feet touched, the ground blossomed. Others dragged themselves forward, bound by cords they had woven themselves, cords of unconfessed sins, of regrets never mended, of pride disguised as humility. I wanted to help them, but my hands passed through them like smoke. A voice spoke within me. You cannot save them by compassion, for they were given the same choice as you. And they have chosen. I saw an old soul weeping, not for punishment, but for realization that hell was not created to torment, but to honor choice. And I understood that the justice of God is not cruel, only absolute. Each soul weaves its own destiny with the threads it spins, and God simply preserves the fabric for eternity. When I turned toward the light, I saw the souls across the river, bright as dawn. They did not fly or sing. They stood still, perfect in silence. A breeze came from their side, not of air, but of holiness itself. It touched me, and in that instant, all the pain of life turned into praise. They were not rewarded for perfection, but because they had let the light make them transparent, I wanted to call out, but no sound could cross that divide between them and me. The river Ionios flowed unending. One side a song, the other silent despair. Then I heard again the voice saying, do not think Ionios belongs only to the future, for you have already lived in it while in the flesh. Every thought is woven with eternity. Every act echoes forever. What you call a moment, to me, is the beginning of the unending. I trembled, realizing that the smallest sin bears the mark of eternity, and the smallest faith carries the seed of heaven. All is recorded in the language of light, which nothing can erase. I asked, Is there a way for a lost soul to return? And the voice replied, yes. While it can still ask, for the question itself is proof that the flame has not died. But once the soul ceases to long for light, it is not I who close the door, but it who shuts itself away. When that word ended, I saw the gate of Ionios slowly closing, and from within came two voices. One like the breath of heaven, the other like the echo of the abyss. Together they formed one sound, a reminder that every human being lives between two eternities, and every decision is a seed sown into forever. I stepped back and looked at the river glowing with light, and I knew that heaven and hell are not distant realms, but present within every choice. Ionios is not a reward nor a punishment, but the true reflection of the soul. As I turned away, the light behind me still cast its glow upon my shadow, and I understood that I still had a choice, that the journey was not yet over, for as long as the light still calls, darkness has not won. When I left the gate of Ionios, the path ahead descended into a deep ravine where there was no light, only fire, but it was not the fire of life. It was a consuming fire, one that burned without turning to ash, that gave no light, though it burned. I knew I was entering the valley, the ancients called Gehenna. The air was thick like congealed blood, carrying the scent of ashes and scorched metal. Beneath my feet the ground was wet and black, and every step I took released a sound like the laboured breath of imprisoned souls. From afar came the echo of thousands of voices, not the screams of pain, but the endless sigh of understanding too late. In the darkness I saw faint forms moving, not bound by chains. Yet each one held an invisible chain wrapped tightly around themselves. They were both prisoner and warden of their own soul. A voice rose from deep within the abyss, not with words, but with awareness, saying that this was the place of those who once knew the light but chose to turn away. I saw a man trying to hold on to a small lamp that had long gone out. His trembling hands tried to reignite it with his breath, but only grey smoke rose and vanished. He looked at me, his eyes hollow, yet still carrying a plea. I could not speak. I only bowed my head, knowing that no oil in all creation could relight a flame that its own keeper had extinguished. I walked further and saw cliffs glowing like embers. Carved into the rock were countless human faces, each one a buried sin, a mischance to love. The fire moved through the cracks, illuminating every feature as if forcing the soul to see itself in punishment. I heard a voice declare, there is no fire but the truth. It is the fire of awareness, the fire of realization. Too late. I trembled, for I understood that Gehenna was not only a place of torment, but the place where truth stands bare and illusion can no longer hide. I met another man whose face was not burned but frozen. He spoke in a whisper. I came here not for rebellion, but for complacency. I believed that knowledge alone could save me, but I never bowed. I spoke of God, yet never let him speak within me. And when the light came, I realized all my wisdom was only a garment covering an empty soul. Then he bowed, and the ice upon his face cracked open, revealing within a small flame, flickering and alone. I understood that his punishment was to see that flame forever, yet never touch it. Deeper still, I reached another abyss where the ground glowed like molten metal. There the souls did not scream. They stood silent in their shame. Each carried upon their shoulders a mirror, and in it they saw the face they once had in life, beautiful and proud. But the surface began to crack, revealing nothing beneath. I heard the voice of the Invisible One ask, "What do you see?" I answered, "I see souls that have nothing left to lose, yet still cling to what they once were." The voice replied, "They are not punished for sin, but for refusing to let it go. When grace knocked, they hid behind their doors, and when the door closed, they believed there would be another chance. I knelt, feeling the burning ground sear through my knees. And I understood that there is nothing more terrifying than believing there is still time when time has already ended. At the end of the valley, I saw a river flowing backward, not of water, but of darkness. On its surface drifted an élan, each one a soul that had once been given a chance. The voice spoke again. It was not I who cast them down. They chose this path themselves. They desired a world without me. So I gave them what they desired. I bowed my head, and my tears mixed with the ashes. For the first time, I did not weep from fear, but from the knowledge that love's only limit is the freedom God has given. As I turned to leave, light rose from the mouth of the abyss. Not harsh, but gentle, like a warning spoken with compassion. I heard the echo say, "Remember what you have seen." For every soul has its own Gehenna, kindled within whenever one chooses deceit over truth, pride over humility, indifference over love. When I walked out of the valley, the fire still burned behind me, but within me another flame awakened, not of terror, but of understanding that hell is not the place where God punishes, but where man finally sees himself as he truly is. When I left Gehenna, the wind changed. It no longer carried the scent of ash and burning iron, but the fragrance of rain falling on new ground. I entered a land of rolling hills where light did not come from the sun but from the air itself. Each breath I drew seemed filtered through fire and water, both burning and cleansing. I knew I was walking into the realm of mercy, where souls are washed clean by tears and truth. There were no cries there, only faint sounds, like breath mingling with endless prayer. The souls I met were not radiant like those who fully belonged to the light, nor dark like those lost in shadow. They glowed with a dim golden hue, like embers, softly stirred, both painful and beautiful. One of them came toward me, his face stripped of pride, transparent with acceptance. He said, "This is the place where mercy works. No one here is abandoned, but no one is forgiven easily. Love is not an open door. It is a patient flame that purifies the soul until it truly desires to remain in the light." I asked him, "Then is your pain punishment or salvation?" He looked at me and smiled sadly, "Both, for there is no cleansing without pain, and no love without exposure. When we see clearly all we have done wrong, all we have ignored, all the hardness of our hearts, the fire of mercy begins to burn away, the final shell. But this fire," he said, "is not like the one below. It does not imprison, it frees." I looked around and saw other souls kneeling in soft light, their tears falling to the ground, where small white flowers bloomed, each one unfolding like a confession, accepted. In the sky, ribbons of light moved slowly. I like the breath of God soothing their pain. I heard songs without words, only sound, and that sound passed through me, unraveling the remaining threads of pride still hidden in my heart. A voice within me whispered, "Humanity fears hell, but few fear mercy, because they do not understand that mercy is what truly transforms." I understood then, for true forgiveness does not only wash away sin, it requires one to face their own wound. Mercy is the wind that lifts the veil, forcing us to look again, not with anger, but with light that does not allow deceit to survive. I walked deeper into that place and saw a stream flowing, clear enough to reveal memories beneath its surface. In that water, souls stepped one by one, unhurried, letting the current pass through them. carrying away the images of their past lives. Each time a memory dissolved, a wound upon them closed, and the light around them grew a little stronger. I knelt and saw my own reflection in the stream. I saw a face that had worn many masks. The wise man, the righteous man, the reasonable man, and beneath them all, the fear of being seen. I bent down, placed my hand in the water, and it was so cold it pierced my heart. When I withdrew my hand, light clung to my skin like thin threads, glowing softly before fading. I knew I'd touched mercy and understood that it is not gentle as people imagine, but fierce as a fire that loves. From afar I saw an older soul, older than all the rest, stepping out of the stream. The light around him was clear as crystal. As he walked, the ground beneath his feet shone, and the sky reflected his form as though mirroring the very will of God. I asked, "Who are you?" He answered, "I am one who once hated himself until he learned that the love of God is stronger than his sin. Mercy pursued me into the darkness, not to punish, but to draw me back to the light. Now I no longer fear judgment, for I have passed through it and found that beyond justice lies compassion." As he departed, the wind carried his words like a prayer. Let mercy transform you, for only souls that have wept truly understand what salvation means. I watched him go and realized that this place was never cold, though it had no sun. The warmth came from within, from hearts that had endured the fire of grace. When I left that hill, I carried with me the scent of water and flame, and I understood that mercy does not erase judgment. It fulfills it, for justice finds its true meaning only when it becomes the hand of love. I left the hill of mercy and walked into a vast plain that stretched to the horizon. There was no darkness there, but no true light either. Only a dim glow like moonlight veiled in mist. The air was so still I could hear the beating of my own heart. I felt fear, but not the fear of hell. Rather the emptiness of a soul that had ceased to long. I realized I had entered the place the angels call the sleep of the church, where souls have not fallen, yet have grown silent, where the fire of faith no longer burns, and only embers remain beneath the thick ash of habit and complacency. Around me sat countless souls in long rows, their heads bowed, their eyes unfocused. They were not chained, not exiled, but seemed to have forgotten they were ever free. Each held in their hands a silver lamp, and in each lamp there was only smoke. I approached one and asked softly, "Why do you not light your lamp?" He lifted his head, his eyes pale. "I have waited too long." The light did not come, and I grew tired. Then he lowered his head again, his eyes closing in a false peace. I understood that this place was more perilous than Gehenna, for in hell one knows they are lost. But here they sleep, believing they are safe. I walked among the rows of souls and heard the whisper of the wind, or perhaps the voice of the invisible one. They are those who once served but forgot why, who once believed but no longer remember whom they believed in. They sing with their lips, but their hearts are silent. I saw in some hands the dry crumbs of old prayers. They repeated familiar words, and not out of love but out of habit. The light from heaven still shone, but it did not reach them, for the dust of self-satisfaction had sealed every entrance. I asked in my heart, how can a soul still living die within its own faith? The voice replied, when man loves comfort more than truth, they want God to be a shelter from the storm, not the wind that moves them. They choose sleep over awakening, because waking hurts more than dreaming. I went deeper and saw a ruined house in the center of the plain. On the door was carved the inscription, "This was once the house of those who kept the lamps." I stepped inside and saw thousands of old lamps covered in dust and webs. Yet, when I touched them, I felt warmth, as though the light had never truly left, only been forgotten. I blew gently, and a small spark flickered to life, weak but alive. The flame spread from one lamp to another. Like the memory of fire being awakened, I heard a sound echoing from afar, like a sigh from heaven. As long as one spark is lit, the night cannot win. At that moment, the souls around me began to stir. They lifted their heads and looked toward the newborn light, their dry eyes filling with tears. One man stood trembling and asked, has the day not yet come? I answered, no, but the night remains, and the lamps can still burn. Hearing this, he knelt, cupped the lamp in his hands, and blew softly. Another flame rose, and so the fire spread across the plain, each soul awakening from its long sleep. I saw them weep, not tears of fear, but of remorse. They remembered the promises they had not kept, the prayers they had forgotten, the gestures of love they had let fade away. As the light grew, their faces changed, becoming younger, lighter, as if repentance had returned to them the childhood of the soul. When the plain was filled with light, I heard the voice declare, this is the miracle of awakening. The flame does not die. It waits for the one willing to breathe. Awakening is not the act of the eyes, but of the heart. I knelt and watched the souls reborn in light, understanding that the greatest enemy of faith is not doubt, but indifference. For as long as one doubts, one still seeks. But when one grows cold, the soul no longer thirsts. And a soul without thirst is a soul already dead. I rose to my feet, the lamp in my hand burning brighter and gold, and the wind from heaven blew through it, making it flicker like the breath of life. I knew then that in the journey of faith, the greatest danger is not the hell of judgment, but the gentle sleep along the way. For when the soul sleeps, darkness does not need to destroy, it only needs to wait. I left that plane carrying the lamp still burning, knowing that if ever I forget, that place will call me back to remind me that faith is not the light once received, but the light kept until the end. I kept walking to the light from the lamp in my hand, guiding me through a narrow mountain pass where the rocks rose like gateways of the soul. There the wind blew fiercely, carrying echoes of questions that had never found answers. I felt I was nearing the heart of the vision, where everything I'd seen before converged into a single question. When I reached the mountaintop, where the earth touched the sky, the voice of the Invisible One spoke again, not from above, but from within me. O searching soul, answer 3 questions, for they are the final gates between knowledge and awakening. I stood there in the wind and light, still holding the burning lamp, and I heard the first question, are you waiting or are you wasting? I looked around and saw within the wind the image of humanity, people rushing along bright streets, yet their eyes were dark. They spoke of the future, of dreams, of hope, but their words were hollow because faith no longer stood behind them. I saw myself among them. In the years I had lived as though life were endless, postponing change, waiting for a sign from heaven to begin living truly. I understood that waiting is not standing still. It is staying awake amid delay. Whoever waits without preparing is already wasting. I bowed my head and answered in silence. I have wasted the light entrusted to me, but from now on, I will burn it through the night, no matter how faint the flame. When I finished, the lamp in my hand grew brighter, and the second question came, are you loving or are you overlooking? The words cut through the coverings of my heart like a sword. Before me appeared the faces I had forgotten, the souls I had passed without seeing, the hands I had not held for fear of pain, the forgiveness I had withheld out of pride. They all stood before me, not accusing, only looking. Each gaze was a mirror reflecting the narrowness of my heart. I understood that love is not a feeling but an act. Not to love is to overlook, and to overlook is to kill what is most sacred within oneself. I whispered, I have walked past many souls without stopping. Teach me to see you in every person I meet. As those words left me, the wind ceased, and for a moment I felt the warmth of countless souls smiling. Then came the third question, louder than thunder, yet softer than breath. Are you surrendering or pretending? I fell to my knees, for there was nowhere left to hide. I saw within me every moment I had spoken of faith while still clinging to control. Every time I had sung of surrender while still afraid to lose. Every time I had bowed outwardly while my heart remained proud. I realized that true faith is not bowing from fear, but lying down in love. Surrender is not loss. It is return. I cried out. I have pretended many times, afraid to lose myself. But now I know to lose myself in you is to be found. When I spoke those words, the ground beneath me trembled, and the lamp in my hand burst into a great flame surrounding me. In that fire, the three questions ceased to be riddles and became three doors opening at once. Through the first, I saw time stop, all delay vanish, leaving only the sacred present. Through the second, I saw the river of love flowing through every soul, even those I once despised. Through the third, I saw the throne of peace, where there was no longer me, only the will of the Creator. I stepped through all three doors, and on the other side I found myself standing in a light that had no source. Everything was so still that even thought bowed. I knew this was no longer the realm of vision but of truth. His voice spoke one last time. None enter eternity by knowledge, but by truth lived. All you have seen, heard, and understood has value only when it becomes the flame you carry into the world. I do not need you to retell it. I need you to relive it. I looked down at my hand, and the lamp was gone, for its light had merged with me. I carried nothing but the three questions, like three small flames that would never die. And as the wind rose again, I knew the journey was not over, for the world was still dark, and the keeper of the lamp cannot sleep while dawn is yet far away. I walked on, and the light within me was no longer like a small lamp, but like a flame that finally understood why it burned. The path before me opened to a valley surrounded by mountains tall as walls. Above, the clouds moved slowly, glowing with two colors, gold and grey, blending into the hue of judgment and hope. I knew I was approaching the final place, where all journeys converge, where every soul is measured by the true light within. As I drew closer, and the ground trembled as though the world itself was holding its breath. In the center of the valley stood a throne made of light. No one sat upon it. Yet from the throne rose the sound of millions of unanswered prayers, like an ocean breaking against an endless shore. I knelt, and the voice of the Invisible One spoke, and no longer distant but so near that I felt each word within my blood. O Sul, you have seen light and shadow, mercy and justice, hell and grace. Now behold the final thing, yourself. I raised my eyes, and before me appeared a great mirror made of living water, shining so brightly I had to squint. In it I did not see my face of flesh, but my bare soul. Everything I had ever done, thought, or hidden, appeared as small rivers flowing together into one sea, and that sea was me. I saw within it the light of faith mixed with the shadow of pride, compassion joined with indifference, and truth diluted by moments when I had chosen silence for safety. Every stream was an unfinished story. I could not lie, nor could I turn away. As I looked deeper, the image in the water divided in two. On one side was myself as I had been created, pure and unblemished. On the other was myself as I stood now, weary and marked by every choice I had made. I wanted to push away that image, but when I reached toward the water, I heard a voice ripple through it. Every person shall face themselves. None shall judge you, but the you reflected in my light. I do not count sin. I reveal the soul, and truth itself will choose where you belong. I understood then that this was the real judgment, not by fire, not by whip, but by light. The light did not destroy. It shone until nothing could hide. I saw within it the faces I had met along my journey, the souls I had helped, the ones I had hurt. They looked at me, not with accusation, but with a silence so tender it made me weep. In that silence, I knew that everything I had ever done, good or bad, had been woven into the fabric of my soul. No act was lost, no word forgotten. I trembled and asked, is there still a chance to change? And the voice answered, only while you live, for life is the privilege of repentance, and eternity only preserves the fruit of choice. I knelt, and my tears fell into the mirror, merging with the water, and the light grew stronger, shining through every wound in my soul. When the light reached the darkest place within me, it did not burn. It embraced. I realized then that the love of God does not erase sin by forgetting it, but transforms it into a witness of mercy. The scars remain, but they no longer hurt. In that light, my reflection began to change, no longer divided between light and dark, but whole. I understood that salvation is not escaping darkness, but allowing the light to enter the darkest place within. When I rose, the mirror turned into mist, rising and vanishing into the sky. The voice spoke once more, return to the world, for where you once fell, there the light needs you most. Remember, faith is not memory, but action that continues with every breath. Tell them that judgment does not come from afar. It begins when the soul chooses to love, to be true, to live for what is eternal. I lifted my head and saw the heavens open, the light cutting through like a sword that clears the path. I stepped through, feeling as if I were falling, yet without fear. When I opened my eyes, I was among the living again, in the same body, but with a different heart. Every sound seemed to echo with light. I looked around and saw people walking, living, forgetting. Yet to me, every breath they took was the whisper of a soul. I knew that my purpose was not to speak of judgment to make them fear, but to remind them that true love is the only lamp that never dies in the night. In the end, judgment is only the mirror that reflects how deeply love has lived within us. As I began to walk, the first wind blew, carrying the fragrance of eternity, reminding me that the pilgrimage is not over. For the judgment of God is not the end, but the invitation to return to the light once forgotten. As I close this journey, I realize that every step, whether upon the mountain of light or through the valley of darkness, has been an invitation from God to return, not to a place, but to Him, the one who waits in silence. In every breath we take, everything I have seen, the souls I have met, the flames that have risen, and the tears that have fallen, all speak the same truth, that salvation does not come from fear, but from love lived honestly. Keep your lamp burning, even when the wind is strong or the night is deep. Love when your heart wants to close. Forgive when reason resists. Remain faithful when faith feels empty. For the light does not find you at the peak of glory. It finds you in the night when you still choose to rise. Live as if each day were your final chance to love once more. to believe a little deeper, to become more genuine before God. Do not wait for judgment to knock before seeking light. For the light has always been within you, waiting for the courage to open your eyes. And if there is one thing I can say to you from the depth of my soul, it is this: live so that when you meet him, you can smile and say, I was not perfect, but I was true to your love. Let this story not be an ending, but the beginning of a new journey within you, a journey of awakening, of love, of steadfast faith that does not tremble before the dark. Though the world changes and hearts grow cold, be the flame that does not die. For the light within you is the only light that can guide others home. May peace fill your soul. And may the word of God you have heard today walk beside you in every step ahead. I pray that you find light in silence, strength in faith, and rest in his presence. May your home be full of peace, your heart full of courage, and your spirit full of quiet confidence that you are never alone. When you close this moment, remember one thing: God is still beside you in every breath, in every heartbeat. Until we meet again, be strong, be gentle, and stay close to his grace. Thank you for walking with me to the very end of this journey. May what you have heard not only touch your mind, but remain in your heart as a reminder that we were not born to fear, but to love, to live, and to shine. Hold on to your faith. For it is the one treasure that can never be stolen. May you be at peace, steadfast, and forever covered in his unending light.